We're going to call to order the special meeting of the Solvang City Council, Tuesday, January 8th, 2019. So we'll have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark?
Here.
Waite?
Here.
Dearness?
Here.
Mayor Toussaint?
Here. With that, we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Robert, would you like to lead us?
Please stand. Raise your right hand over your heart, please, and please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, with that, we'll move on to our regular agenda. Lisa, can we get a readout?
Item 1, City Council vacancy. Hear presentations from individuals interested in being appointed to the vacant City Council seat and adopt resolution number 19 next in order, making an immediate appointment to fill the vacant unexpired 2-year term of office on the City Council.
And can I please get a staff report by our interim city manager, Rick Caden?
Thank you, Mayor Toussaint. Members of the City Council, the agenda item before you, as the city clerk mentioned, is the appointment to the vacancy. Back on December the 10th, the City Council certified the final election results, showing then Councilmember Toussaint winning the mayoral race. He was thereby creating a vacancy on the City Council that evening. It should be noted that state law does not establish a chosen method to use in the appointment of a City Council member. And so at the meeting of December the 10th, there was a consensus on the City Council to direct staff to immediately advertise for the vacancy and to accept applications. The applications were accepted through Friday, the 4th of January. We received 11 applications. Completed application packets are in each council member's agenda packet for you to review. Based on the number of applications received, staff is recommending the council employ the following process as delineated in the attachment A for your consideration. And to summarize that is as follows. At the conclusion of my presentation, I'm recommending that the City Council receive public comment on this item. After public comment, the City Council should determine the questions to ask the candidates, as well as approve or modify the proposed selection process. Once the process has been determined, it's being recommended that the city clerk conduct a random drawing of the candidates in an effort to determine the order of their presentation. Once the order of their presentation has been determined, all applicants will be asked to voluntarily step outside the council chambers until their names have been called by the mayor to give their presentation. Now, since this is an open meeting, absent some potential for disruptions, i.e. someone's creating a disturbance in the council chambers, you can ask that person to leave. Technically, the council is not in a position to exclude certain members from tonight's public meeting by virtue of it being an open meeting of the City Council. However, staff would recommend that council request that candidates voluntarily step outside the council meeting during that portion of tonight's presentations and wait until their names are called to come in and give their individual presentation. The thought is on that is to even the playing field, and we request this not to give one candidate an unfair advantage during the presentation. For example, if the 4 of you were making a presentation and you started with Councilmember Clark and then you went to Councilmember Waite, by the time you get back to Mayor Toussaint, and if he was to have listened to your 2 presentations, he may modify his presentation to add some things that you said. That's why we're asking people to voluntarily step outside. Each applicant will be given up to 3 minutes to make a presentation, providing council with their qualifications and the reasons why they should be appointed to the City Council. After their presentation, each council member will be asked to give each candidate a question. That's attachment B of your City Council packet. Those were questions that council provided staff to include in the application packet. After each candidate answers the questions, they will be given 1 or 2 minute, it's a 1-minute summation on their presentation. At the conclusion of all the presentations, the City Council will begin the rank voting ballot exercise. That concludes staff's presentation. Before you move on to public comment, I would ask if council members have any questions for staff regarding either the proposed process or the proposed questions.
Okay, I have one, and that was I would like to ask the council to reconsider a rephrase of some of the questions, just to make them a little bit more politically correct and expedite the meeting. Some of the questions were very lengthy. And I have extra copies. So with that, I'm looking to rephrase the questions without losing the original intent.
Pass these out.
Yeah, you can go ahead and, yeah. Without losing the original intent of the question that the council member was trying to ask, but then also not changing the question so that the candidate feels that the question is now all of a sudden changed on them. They didn't have time to prepare for it. So I believe these still get straight to the point.
I have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
The question that I had wanted to ask is missing from this, so is that the comment that you felt would be politically incorrect?
No, certainly not yours. I think actually with yours you had a two-part question, but we could add the part about let's find the original one. Oops. So we could add the first part in. Why didn't you run for this position during the 2018 elections?
Yes, I'd like to ask that one because I feel it's a very important question. That is the reason that I felt we should do an appointment rather than an application process.
Okay. Do we have a motion from the council?
I move that we
Consensus
accept
to move forward.
Yeah, I think that we can go ahead and add that part to question number 4 and accept them as is.
So as revised by Karen?
Yes.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded.
I second.
Okay.
Are they going to ask these?
Do we even need a motion on that, or it's just a consensus right now?
You can do it either way. Consensus is probably fine since you're
Okay.
putting together the questions at this point. Sorry.
Consensus is fine for this type
Okay.
of thing. You know, you don't need a formal motion for it, as
Perfect.
long as the council understands what the question is that's going to be added. And the language originally was, for those that were not a candidate in the recent 2018 election, why didn't you run for this position during the election?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then after that, do we just need consensus from the council that we want to move forward with the ranking type profile, or do we go to public comment first?
I think before you take any action on the process itself, you might want to describe what the recommendation has been a little bit so that the public has an opportunity to provide input, and then open it up for public comment only on the item that is on the agenda. There's no general public comment session for a special meeting, so comments should be limited to the item that is on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, if you'd like, I can make that
Yes, that'd
summary.
be great.
Okay. The proposed rank voting ballot exercise is phase 1. And that exercise has that a ballot with a list of each eligible applicants will be given to the city council. And that would be given by the city clerk. Each council member shall rank their top 5 candidates in order of preference from 1 to 5. 1 being their first choice, 2 being their second choice, etc. This ranking will provide the top 5 candidates with actual points, resulting in a council member's top candidate receiving 5 points, their second candidate receiving 4 points, etc. Once this is done, each council member will then sign their ballot, hand it to the city clerk. The city clerk, in conjunction with city staff, will use the above ballots to tabulate the points for each council candidate. I have a laptop in front of me that has a display with each of the ballots, and we'll be able to summarize them all so the public can see who would be the candidate with the highest votes.
Okay. So with that, we'll move on to public comment. The first speaker slip that I have is Carrie McKinnon.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. I'm Carrie McKinnon, and I am a resident of Solvang. I want to apologize to you for not attending the December 10 meetings to congratulate you on your new positions. I'm especially sorry because now the first time I appear before you, I need to tell you my disappointment in your action taken during that meeting. In one of your first decisions on this council, you chose to fill a vacant seat via an application process rather than to fill with the next highest vote getter in the very recent election. An application process might be the best option if there's been a length of time since the last election and no recent candidates are available, but that is not the case in the current situation. So no doubt I should have been at that meeting to remind you of the important precedent for the appointment of a candidate from a very recent election. It is the fairest, the simplest, the most transparent, and the most democratic process. To do anything else is to ignore the votes of citizens and open yourselves up to accusations of political maneuvering to form a council more to your own liking than the people of this city have chosen. Nevertheless, you did choose this process, and we will have to go through it tonight, and to that end, I have a couple of suggestions. One, as talented as some of these applicants may be, those who did not make the effort to go through the election process cannot possibly be considered as strongly as those who put themselves on the line last fall by participating in the election process as candidates for City Council. And the second part of it was I took issue with some of your published questions. You have fixed that. These are nice questions, and they are much more to the point. I do believe that in an interview process, it is wrong to ask different questions of different candidates, so that if you are going to ask the question, why did you not run, maybe you should also let the people who ran say, why did you run? Just a suggestion. Anyway, thank you for your time, and thank you for your respect for the citizens of Solvang.
Thank you. Gay Infante.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'm Gay Infante and a resident of Solvang. I wanted to talk to you tonight about your thinking process in determining who you will appoint to this vacant seat. Over the last week, we've all seen the new Congress take their seats with a record number of novice representatives in the House of Representatives, all who are eager to bring change, and I think that's a good thing. But they have one advantage that you all don't have, and that is their leaders and their colleagues, many of whom have been there a long time, are able to help them and mentor them as they come up to speed to be able to meet their responsibilities to their constituents and to our nation. We've also seen a new governor installed yesterday, and today the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors. Again, they've got new members, but they've also got members, colleagues who can mentor them through the process of getting up to speed. Frankly, running a small business or being in corporate management or even being on a board or commission in a city don't really fully qualify you to perform this job as anticipated by your constituents here in Solvang. The other thing is that we're about to have a new city manager appointed, and that person will be appointed by you. I'm a little concerned that many, if not most of you, all of you, have yet to meet with our city staff, the leaders of the departments, to understand their responsibilities, their challenges that they have to deal with every day. And again, I think the city manager needs to be experienced in dealing with those kinds of things. So I hope you choose the right person there as well. So what I want to urge you tonight, and really Solvang residents are concerned about this, please consider appointing someone who has the necessary municipal government experience to help you all get up to speed as you digest the general plan, become familiar with our municipal codes, get up to speed on the responsibilities and challenges of our city staff so that you can all fully perform the job that you were voted in for. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Gay. Gabe Rossetti.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff. Gabe Rossetti, resident of Solvang. I'm going to disagree with the prior two speakers. I think this past election was a mandate. And the mandate, the citizens of Solvang overwhelmingly voted for a sweeping change. That is, out with the old, in with the new. No more old guard. If it wasn't for that mandate, there's not a single one of you would be sitting up here right now. The city's demographics are changing, as is the business model, the approach to retail, the approach to tourism. And what the citizens need is we need to continue to move forward and not go backward. And that's what this past election was all about, was moving forward and making sure there's a change. So I'm strongly urging you to do what the vast majority of Solvang voted for, and that is not to consider those who ran in the past election and were defeated. Obviously, they're going to tout their experience, but that experience was not enough to get them to be reelected. They were voted out. And I'm going to bet the majority of people that come up here tonight are going to want those people to be considered. I, however, am not one of them, because I'm in the majority of people that voted for that sweeping change. So again, I strongly urge you to choose someone with no prior tie to the City Council and the old guard, because that's what the overwhelming number of Solvang citizens voted for. Thanks.
Thank you, Gabe. That's the last speaker slip we have here. So with that, we will take this back to the council for discussion and action. I think the... Aaron, if you'd like to come speak.
Aaron Peterson, citizen of Solvang. So congratulations. I mean, and you guys did do well in the election. I'm not here to tout anybody, and some of you are my really good friends and enjoy speaking with you and hanging out. So whoever you guys pick, I can tell you I will stand up and applaud and hold you grateful for what you guys are doing. I don't envy you in this position of picking, I think, 1 out of 11. That's miserable. City of Solvang is a tourist-related industry. Cities have to have an economic driving engine. Tourism is our engine, like it or not. We could have a smelter, we could have a prison, we could have a tire factory. 50, 60 years ago, it became tourism. Tourism is it. Like it or not. Locals that move here later, locals that have been here for 100 years, like it or not, it is tourism. Traffic comes, traffic goes. We have pluses and minuses to it. That doesn't mean that tourism is the utmost. I would hate to see 3 or 4 people on city council that are all owners of tourist businesses. That would be miserable for those folks that don't have any interest in tourism. But without tourism, and our TOT, as we all know, and some people recognize in town and some people don't, over 50% of our budget comes from tourist-related economic engine, from TOT, and from sales tax. If we don't have a beach, if we don't have a ski resort, if we don't have a vista to look at, a little Cambria, a little Carmel, a little Solvang, nobody comes and stays in hotels. Otherwise, Seaman, these big corporations that are looking at Solvang, would open a hotel on I-5 in the middle of nowhere. The only two hotels in town, the LSL and the Shumash, have their own standalone. The rest of these hotels, where our TOT is generated, come from all of us that have little businesses. So I'm pushing for you not to have 3 or 4 or 5 or 2 people that have tourist-related business backgrounds, but at least one. You have an opportunity for one person to be selected who has their vested interest, who's made payrolls, who understands it, who can talk to Public Works about scheduling of public projects and how we go about advertising our town. Because without it, we don't have a YMCA. We don't pass bonds at Solvang School. We don't have a theater fest. We don't raise money for the hospital. All those things. We don't have all the sidewalks and the crosswalks and the curb and gutters that we have in this town without that economic driving interest. If not, we're suburban of Santa Barbara and everyone commutes down, or we put a smelter in, or we put a prison in. We have tourism. So my support is for Kim Jensen. Kim's a good friend of mine. That's what I'm pushing for.
Thank you.
Small businessman. Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll take this back to the council for discussion and action. Did you have? Yes, you may speak.
My name's
Please approach the podium.
Good evening. My name is Timothy A. Thompson. This village is a beautiful place. It's a little bit broken, sir. In fact, the retail sector is a lot broken and needs a lot of help. I'm a retired insurance agent of 25 years, very successful in Santa Barbara.
Please speak into the microphone,
Yes.
sir.
I'm sorry, I have a big mouth. In any event, retired insurance agent. I owned a very successful insurance business in Santa Barbara for 24 years. I was forced into early retirement at age 45 when I became permanently disabled. Shortly thereafter, my former wife gave me some pink slips and I became single. Moved to the village here and was going to stay a year. My sister, Sandy Milby, and her husband, John Milby, opened Del Sol. It's a retail clothing store on Alisal, very successful for the last 14 years until it moved into its sister business, Caraloha, the bamboo clothing, and wonderful store. 2 very successful stores. I have done marketing for them for the last 12 years. I created a coupon originally where we gave it to the folks at the timeshare. They came in, got a free color-changing tote bag just for coming in to see us, and eventually built it into a very successful campaign that now delivers about 20 discount coupons in a cellophane packet through 13 hotels. The hotel owners love it because it's simple, it's clean, it works. I've created a website where all those coupons can be downloaded to cell phones, shown in the stores. They'll receive the same discount.
Okay.
In any event, I believe I know what the retail sector needs. I studied it for 12 years every day. So I can help and offer that information to you at
this
any
point,
time.
we need to keep the topic on the appointment. So,
all right, I
if you have a point to
apologize.
make, I need you to make the
wanted
point.
to
Or
get that out, and
okay,
I do apologize, sir, but another time.
thank you. Last one.
My name is Chuck Stacy. I've lived here for almost 40 years. I was the priest at St. Mark's when it was here in Solvang, and later in Los Olivos. Our kids grew up here. My wife taught here, and we've been here, like I say, almost 40 years. I was really struck this year by Danish Days, and I think it bears hearing at this point, because the Danes were concerned about how Danish Days became kind of flunky. And
Chuck, we really need to stick to the appointment. We'll be here all night long.
But what is important is they got, since people are talking about various elements of what makes Solvang. This was a part of Solvang made up of all kinds of people in Solvang who belong to that organization. And they cleaned it up, and they felt very good about how Danish Days went this year, because it wasn't honky-tonk, and if you were here and you saw how people came and respected that, much more so than they have in the past. So I'm just saying, that I think that has set a new tone in this town, and that should be part of what's being considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. With that, we're going to take this back to the council for discussion and action. I think the first line of business is for us to agree on what method we want to use moving forward. We have the staff recommendation of the nomination process. Do we have consensus to move forward with that route?
Yes, I believe that's what we agreed upon, and that's why we're sitting here now. And I accept the staff recommendation as to the procedure for the appointment or nomination of the next candidate.
Okay. With that, I believe we now need to move on to picking from a hat with regard to presentation order, or?
And Mr. Mayor, just to reconfirm, the names that you're pulling out of the hat is the order in which they will be making a presentation, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
So the first name we have is Michael Mendiza. Followed by Justin Rodriguez. Patrick Henry. Gregory Milliken. Did I say that correctly? David Berksvik. I hope I'm not watching these too badly. Kenny Esco, New York. Joan Jameson. Christopher McCool. Edwin Skitt. Daniel Johnson. And Kim Jensen.
And Mr. Mayor, as I mentioned previously, since this is a open meeting, technically we're not in a position to exclude certain members of the public from the council chambers. However, it would be staff's recommendation that council request that candidates voluntarily step out of the council chambers into our conference room during the portion of tonight's presentations, and then we will go out and bring them in their order of their presentation.
Okay. So with that, I'll make the request that the candidates involved voluntarily leave. If you disagree with it, please raise your hand so I'm aware of it now. Otherwise, we'll move on.
And Mr. Mendiza could stay here because he'll be the first one given his presentation.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. The city clerk right now is passing out the ballots. The ballots have the names of each one of the candidates, and then it has the ranking order for council to fill out at the conclusion of tonight's presentations.
Okay, Michael, you ready? So with that, you can make your 3-minute presentation, and then we'll move into the questions, and then you get a 1-minute summation and 2 minutes, right, for answering each question.
1 minute to respond after you answer your questions of him.
Okay.
You ask your questions of him.
Each candidate will be given up to 2 minutes to answer each question. After each candidate answers council's question, at the end of their interview, they'll be allowed 1 minute.
So between a 3-minute presentation, up to 2 minutes per 4 questions, and then a 1-minute summation, that's a total aggregate time of potentially 12 minutes. Okay. All right. Move forward to your presentation, Michael.
Me too. I didn't really prepare a formal presentation. I think my notes that I did provide my background. I've been a filmmaker for the last 40 years, doing documentary and educational and commercial works. And the essence of that is really helping my clients tell their story. I think the main vision that I can bring and help the city with at this particular time, I think the city is at a unique juncture for all the reasons that people have talked about before. You know that my wife and I have now 3 businesses in town. We've watched it change. We've watched actually the demographics that you're talking about change since we've been here. And it's our position with Zfolio. We're in touch with not just local artists and that, but really with international artists. So the changes that we've referred to in what I call the new retail reality, the changes that we're all struggling with to cope with in the world called retail. And as Aaron said, retail and tourism are bound together. They're really synonymous. Are historically unprecedented. And I've been researching this and looking at it personally because I had to deal with it with our galleries. And again, age differences, value differences, of course the internet, the fact that you can get just about anything you need now with a click means that you no longer need to go travel to get what you need. So the reason that people get off the couch and come to some place is no longer because of retail as it traditionally has been. And this is changing the whole, changing worldwide, not just here. So again, I've spent the last 5 years looking at this phenomena and talking with people around the world, literally, who's looking at this. So the word that I'm going to use is story. I think Solvang needs a story. I don't think pastries and buildings and just the architecture and maybe a little history is enough to bring the next generation of visitors and tourists to the community. So I think that there's a real need for the city to articulate its story and then find ways of telling that story in the stores, throughout the community, throughout the Theater Fest, throughout the various activities that go on. Anyway, so helping to articulate that story, I think, is the strength that I have, and it would be great to be able to contribute to that. founded a nonprofit many years ago, 30 years ago actually, so the public sector work has been something that I've been doing for all these years.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we'll move on to the questions. I can ask each one of these questions, or each council member could own their own question. Is there a preference? Then I'll just ask them. All right, so question number 1. If you were to run a campaign for Solvang City Council tomorrow, please briefly describe what your platform would be.
My platform would really balance innovation, taking the history, the culture, and the spirit of Solvang historically, and innovating it in ways that are meaningful for the next generation, which I think is fundamentally different than in past generations. So that would be my platform, would be innovation, but with a real care and eye towards honoring history, tradition, and the past. So it's how do we bring the past into the future so that it meets the needs of the new visitor? That would be my platform.
Okay. And how would you handle strong public opposition to a policy you had intended to support?
Marshall Rosenberg was the founder of an organization called Nonviolent Communication, and he basically shared, I did the training programs for him. He basically said, without having empathy for what the person that you're listening to, without really understanding the feelings and needs that are driving what they're after, then you're not going to resolve the conflict. So one, I think that empathy for whoever it is and a real deep understanding of what their feelings and needs are would be a prerequisite to managing any challenge like that. And then you need to come with a reason, with what I would even say a scientific approach, questioning assumptions, questioning tacit assumptions, and so on and so forth. So you're going to balance having empathy for what the person is talking about so that they feel heard and understood, but then using a real logic and I would say even a scientific method to question the assumptions that are around us and find a solution that really deals with the commons, that is in the best interest of the commons, not my interest or not your interest or not their interest, but we're trustees of the commons. So how do we find a solution that's in the best interest of the commons?
Thank you. What is your vision for the future of Solvang?
As I said earlier, I think that Solvang needs a story. Again, the idea that the buildings and what it has rested on or has those devices that drew people to the community, I think are waning in terms of what the next generation are going to be looking for. So this is a major challenge. We have the buildings, we have the history, we have the tradition, but I would use the metaphor of Disneyland. Disneyland is a story. It's not anything without the story. They actually constructed the Disney experience based on the story. And I think we can follow that. I think we can create a story that is worth getting off the couch and coming to see and to experience. And there's many, many different ways that can be done. So my vision is my hope for the city is that it reinvents itself using story in a way that entices and brings people to town because it's an experience that they can share and that they're not going to find anyplace else. Thank you.
Why didn't you run for this during the 2018 election?
Frankly, it seemed as though there was this dichotomy between the existing base and new innovations. And frankly, I didn't think that I had anything to offer in that split. But once this opportunity came up where innovation seemed to be the mandate, then I felt that what I had to offer may be of some service.
Thank you. And then what is your experience in public service?
Founded a nonprofit 35 years ago and have been, it's called Touch the Future. As a documentary filmmaker, I basically have interviewed several hundred people, visionaries in the field of family and child development. written a couple of books about it. But basically, running the nonprofit for all these years has been my contribution, plus sitting on boards with other nonprofits.
Okay. And you have 1 minute. Any summary? Anything you'd like to say?
I think we're at a very interesting and wonderful transition. We have a really wonderful transition opportunity. You being on where you're sitting is kind of a, fuel for this engine of innovation. And again, respecting the history, respecting the tradition, wanting to amplify that, grow it, and build that tradition, but to do it in innovative ways. I think that's a remarkable opportunity, and the next year or two is going to make a big difference in the city. So maybe I can contribute.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to the next candidate. Yeah, he can stay.
You can stay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he didn't want to.
Okay.
Who's the next candidate?
Justin.
Who's? Can I have a list? Because I
I got it.
Oh, you have a list?
And on deck. Patrick.
All right, so we'll call it Justin Rodriguez next.
You don't want them to make action to what the other person said either. You were there.
Good evening. My name is Justin Rodriguez. My wife and I have lived here since 2015. We're fortunate to have the opportunity to move here and to begin to raise our young family. I grew up in Santa Barbara, and I graduated after I graduated high school. I went off to college at California State University, Long Beach. I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Geography, where I studied climatology, watershed management, urban and physical geography, and remote sensing, among other topics. During my tenure at CSU Long Beach, I was an active member of the Surf Club, where I served as president of the club for 2 years. After I graduated, my wife and I married, and we moved back to Santa Barbara. We owned a condo there, and I was on the board of that HOA for 2 years. We lived in the condo for 5 years. I've worked in asphalt construction since 2007, and in 2017, my brother and I started Central Coast Paving here in the Valley, and I've been operating that business for the last 2 years out of the Valley here. I believe it would be an honor to serve the people of Solvang as a council member, and I appreciate the opportunity. As far as the questions that were submitted, if I were to run a campaign platform, I would be an advocate for traffic safety. That is something that is near and dear to me, especially since I have 2 small children, and we walk through these streets and the neighborhoods throughout town. And I would like to set up a committee to help explore traffic safety, especially one of the things that I would be interested in is, I know I've heard it talked about before, but at Mission Drive and Skip Mesa, installing a roundabout for traffic safety as trucks pull out of there making a left turn, and it's kind of dangerous as cars come head on trying to make a left turn into Skip Mesa. Also, connecting the Alamo Pintado Business District with a sidewalk or another safe way of getting from that part of town to the upper village would be interesting to explore. And it comes to difficult or contentious issues with the community, I think it's important to listen to both sides, understand both points of view, and do what's best for the community as a whole. As regards to demographics change, I think it is important, listening to people speak tonight, this is a tourist industry, and it is important to maintain Solvang's charm, and all the while expanding business for local residents and giving them we live here, we need things for us too, not just for the tourists, but we do understand that this is a tourist-based economy, and that needs to be maintained. The reason I didn't run in 2018 was because I didn't think it was feasible for me with a young family, but as the kids mature and are growing, I believe that it's easier to do now, and this is the time where I'd be glad to serve. So thank you for your time and consideration.
So we still have, let's see, you got on to, okay, so you still have a little bit more time if you want to sum up, if you have any statement or anything.
No, I appreciate the opportunity, and that's about
Perfect.
it. Those are my statements. So
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
You got plenty of time.
Oh, it's okay. Thank you. Appreciate it, Chris.
All right, so with that, we'll call up Patrick Henry.
And Gregory Milliken's on deck. Good evening.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, how are you this evening?
So you can move forward with your opening statement, and then we'll
Okay.
move into a few questions,
Right.
and then we'll give you a 1-minute summation.
All right, very good. Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members, and good evening to all the rest of the people in attendance. My name is Patrick Henry. I have over 20 years working for the city of Santa Barbara as a property management specialist the last 10 years. Prior to that, I was a harbor operations assistant for the harbor operations and the waterfront. And I've been dealing with the public in many aspects, from working as a short order cook at a Kentucky Fried Chicken to being in the banking business, and finally now in the city business of the city of Santa Barbara. This opportunity came about, and I wanted to certainly take advantage of this moment and put my name in the hat, so to speak, and see what happens. As far as the first question goes, about running a campaign, my platform would consist of very certain basic principles. Openness, to hear people's ideas, their suggestions and concerns. I think when you stop listening, you stop being informed. You stop learning. You have to be balanced. You have to avoid prejudging in order to make the best informed decision, and to know or at least anticipate what are the ramifications of your decision. You have to be accessible. Emails, and I suggest maybe a monthly meet and greet at a local coffee shop. There's a number of in Santa Barbara or in Solvang, and I would like to be able to sit there once a month, and if there's a big turnout, then maybe do it twice a month to meet the people and hear their ideas and their concerns. And you should be prepared going into a meeting. I found that at Harbor Commission meetings in Santa Barbara, city council meetings, go in prepared. Know your agenda, have your questions ahead of time, get them addressed if you can. It makes life a lot simpler. And I'm not a career politician. I am here for the people of Solvang and for their future. As far as question number 2, how would you handle strong opposition? I think a council member represents many constituents in their area. They're all different, and that makes it interesting. Sometimes decisions are not popular. People will disagree, but that's the beauty of free choice. And you have a responsibility, I think, as a council member to get in as much information as you can and make the best decision that you can. Do it with respect, without prejudice, or without prejudging. We have to be fiscally responsible with the taxpayers' money. And ultimately, the decision may be the opposite of even other council members. But as a person of principle, I would have to vote with my conscience and be prepared to explain my position.
Well, so if you wait for me to ask you the next question, they'll restart the ticker.
Oh, okay.
But there's a couple people that move pretty fast, so I'm just letting it go, so you can just keep speaking.
Very good. Thank you. So number 3, what's my vision for the city of Solvang for the future? Well, my wife was mentioning that Solvang was named the best Christmas town. So I looked it up, and sure enough, it was, by Reader's Digest, and was named one of the 10 best Christmas towns in America by the New York Post. So why not capture that idea, that designation, and run with it, say, for 30 days, right after Thanksgiving, in through December.
You can bring in an outdoor ice skating rink. Somebody proposed that once for the Stearns Wharf. Logistically, it wouldn't work, but we have a beautiful park. Maybe we could use it over there. Vendors could sell, hot cider, roasted chestnuts, hot peanuts, have ice sculpture contests. The companies that, made snow for Buellton could also blow snow over people as they are walking through the park there. They have such a thing that does it. It's really fun. Carolers, I think they were doing some of that the last few years. People dressed up in period costumes and going around. I think that's great. And even having a country Christmas. There's a lot of local country bands, country music in town. So practically every month there's an opportunity for us to expand our tourism base. Just take advantage of those opportunities. And what experience do you have in public service? And then your additional question is about why didn't I run when the opportunity presented itself? Well, let's be honest. It takes money and time. I don't have a big billfold, so I don't necessarily can go out there and finance a campaign run. You have to have staff, buy ads, posters, mailers, TV and radio time, and so on. You all know how expensive it is to do it. I've thought about it for years, and this opportunity now presented itself, and I said, why not throw my hat in there and see what happens? And can't hurt. Then I get the email that says, okay, you're in the running with 11 other people, or 10 other people, so here I am. And so I wanted to take advantage of this chance. I'm here, broken wrist and all. I did that on Sunday, and use a stepladder in the future. It saves you a lot of pain.
Safer.
Can't believe I did that, but anyway. I think one of the challenges for me in public service is my boss told me when I first came into my position that I was working down there is you have people may ask you a question you don't have the answer for. And he says, so don't try and dream up something. Don't try and BS them. Just honestly say, that's a good question. Let me get back to you on that. And that's just being truthful, honest, but also get back to the people. Don't leave them hanging, waiting for an answer, and never get back to them. So.
And do you have any experience in public service?
In an elected position, no.
Okay.
I do not.
Perfect. So with that, you get a 1-minute summary if you have anything else you want to end with.
Presently, right now, I work, I'm on the HOA board for the Alamo Pintado Village. I've been a secretary for the last 4 years, and it's an elected position locally, so to speak. Our 49 condo members pick you. And it seems like once you get on there and you do a good job, they don't want to get rid of you. So I'm still on. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Let's see. So with that, we'll move on to candidate number 4, Gregory Milliken. Hi, Gregory.
Okay, hi.
So what we'll do is we're going to give you a 3-minute presentation time. And if you pause after that and don't go right into the questions, I will ask you each question, and it restarts the ticker.
Okay. Good. I'm going to keep my keep my clock here too, so that I don't run myself over either. A little bit of feedback. Well, Mayor and Council, thank you for going through all of this and making this possible. Attract a lot of interest, and it's for good purpose. So first, qualifications and reasons why the council should appoint me to this position. I'm a practicing business lawyer with skills I've built over 40 years of practice, listening, analyzing, reading, and making sense of long and boring documents and regulations and financial reports and laws in finding workable outside-of-the-box solutions to difficult situations across many fields. I have knowledge of the law, good knowledge of the law. I don't anticipate any conflicts of interest in city matters because my practice is outside of the city and other areas. My wife and I are invested in the city and intend to spend the rest of our lives here. We moved here in 2016 from Pasadena, but we're here to stay. My style of work is collaborative and non-divisive, not contentious or argumentative. I'm told that I bring wisdom and good counsel in this type of teamwork setting where we have a common project we're working on. And at this point, I have time available for this in my practice, which wasn't the case years ago. And last, and maybe most important, my wife is supportive and encouraging of taking on this challenge and the time it involves. So that's my response to the first point.
Perfect.
Okay.
First question is going to be, if you were to run a campaign for Solvang City Council tomorrow, could you please briefly describe what your platform would be?
Sure. I think my campaign platform would have two planks. One would be the first to invest in Solvang's future for the generations coming ahead. And by that I mean by updating and maintaining key infrastructure and services like water supply, energy sources, waste management, education, transportation, healthcare, the things that are essential for people to be able to be here in the future and thrive. The second plank, as I would call it, would be to keep faith with the prior generations that have come before. And by that I mean doing that by extending Solvang's appeal and maintaining Solvang's spirit as the Danish capital of America. I believe it's the appeal of Solvang and the spirit, in a sense, that makes guests and residents love being here and keeps them coming back. I don't know about you, but everywhere I go, whether in this country or even in Europe, when people say, "Where are you from?" and I say, "Well, we live in Solvang," what do they say? They say, "Oh, I love Solvang. It's beautiful there." And I think those would be the two planks that I would have.
Perfect. So question number 2, how would you handle strong public opposition to a policy you had intended to support?
Sure. I'd begin with listening to the opponents, the strong public opposition, asking questions as much as needed and available to be sure that I understand their views and their thinking as well as reasonably possible from where I'm sitting. Then I'd respond to them, and I'd summarize what I've heard, answer any relevant questions that they've asked of me or asked of the council, so that they feel heard and understood. Then, assuming my views remain at odds with theirs after going through this give and take process as much as we can, then I'd explain my conclusions and why I reach a different outcome, even with their input. And my goal would be that they feel and be respected and valued, not discounted or ignored.
Perfect. And then question number 3, what is your vision for the future of Solvang?
Okay, well, I'd like to exercise a little imagination together. So my vision for the future of Solvang is that at the Danish Days celebration on the 500th anniversary of the founding of Solvang, none of us are going to be there, but this vision nonetheless extends there, that Solvang, the Danish capital of America, will be celebrated on that occasion as a great blend of innovation and continuity. It would be a hospitable city that still welcomes thousands who visit year-round from near and far, a healthy city that is still suited for young and old to live in together, to be a relational city whose churches and charities and voluntary associations are still alive and well, and yet it would be an innovative city. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, for example, that we have the Landsby now, a contemporary Danish so-called hotel. We don't have the Inn at Peterson Village anymore. We have Copenhagen House, not a bank. We have the Solvang Brewing Company, not a former Danish restaurant. We don't have Atterdag College. We have Atterdag Village and the Atterdag Cottages, and a state-of-the-art facility, which is frankly one of the best between LA and the Bay Area, as an extended place for care as for seniors. So, these are things where things are not being just slavishly kept the way they've always been, but rather changed in the light of things that are changing, but still in continuity with what the founders did. So I would be looking at new good uses of existing resources, like I've just mentioned, as well as putting any good new resources, IT, things that didn't even exist in the founders' day, putting them to good use, and that's facilitated, not hindered, that the costs of getting into business, the costs of getting permitted, and so forth, is manageable and timely, because that's what you have to do in business. That's my clients. In other words, I'm thinking of a city in the 500th anniversary celebration with quality goods and services of such value that people are drawn to come again and again and again, i.e. to a festival theater and not to an outlet store. You remember the outlet stores? Festival theater still here. So, in effect, a city that is built and maintained to last. That's my vision.
Thank you. Let's see, why didn't you run in the 2018 election?
Yeah, we were, that's quick, we were new enough to the area. As I said, we moved in from Pasadena in April 2016 to one of the Skit Mesa houses that they were building up there in the last phase. I didn't want to presume that I knew what the city needed. And we're still learning and still getting our feet on the ground here in the valley and in Solvang. But that 2018 election has taken place, and this council has been elected with the mandate and the views and who you are. So my sense is now I have an opportunity to bring what I do have, and the experience that I do have, to contribute to what's been begun with the 2018 election in the council that is seated.
Perfect. And what experience do you have in public service?
Mostly in law. In Pasadena, we co-chaired the mayor's prayer breakfast for 7 years. I've served as a judge pro tem in the municipal courts, mentored high school students in the law, mentored young lawyers, that type of stuff, pro bono work for local nonprofits, things like that.
Thank you. So with that, we have a 1-minute summation time. You can
Okay.
take advantage if you wish.
Sure. So moving together towards Solvang's best future, as I see it, will require some shared courage to grasp what risks we must take. I see it as a risk-taking venture, a shared risk-taking venture. And then also wisdom and prudence to take those risks in ways and at times that we can afford. Don't want to take risks we can't afford to take. We're each imperfect, including me, of course, and therefore every voice matters in terms of full participation. Is that it?
Was that the minute?
That was a fast minute.
Half a minute? Okay.
That was it.
Mistakes are likely to be made, from which we will have to recover, and therefore grace and good humor will be needed and should be welcomed. This sounds like a process and a set of challenges that would be a joy for me to participate in with you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, with that, we will move on to David Bergsvik. All right.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Dave Bergsvik. I'm a new resident of Solvang. I've just moved in here in October, but and that's one of the reasons why I didn't run last time, to answer the question in advance. But I've been coming to the Valley here for approximately 30 years. I have in-laws down in Santa Barbara, and when I retired and decided to move down here, I just chose Solvang because I love it up here. Even though I had many comments that it was a bad tax decision to move to California from Washington, it's still worth it. But I'm a CPA and finance person. That's what I did during my business career. But you know, I also, when I was going to college, I was a truck assembly mechanic. I was a member of the Teamsters Union and also the International Association of Machinists, and so I have a mechanical background as well. And this mechanical experience and aptitude was very useful in the company that I used to work for because they operated ships and tugs, and so I don't get out of my element when we're talking about mechanical things. I understand how machines work. I'm a quick learner and a very hands-on person. One of my retirement goals was to rebuild my 1995 Corvette. I pretty much did that entirely on my own through the use of manuals and YouTube videos. And you know, I've always felt that it's better to know what you're doing by learning about it before embarking on a project. Don't just go out and hire a consultant. You know, try to see what you can figure out on your own. And you know, I've done that throughout my business career and also in my personal life. I also led the installation of a couple major software systems, and I'm not I don't have a background in that kind of thing, but both those systems were installed with very little help from consultants. I was very successful in business, but I also was successful when I was a blue-collar union worker. I actually had to take a 40% pay cut to go to work in public accounting after I finished college. But you know, I felt it was a better long-term decision. But this diverse experience helps me connect with people of all walks of life, and I think that's important, especially on the city council, to hear viewpoints from not just business owners but also citizens and people in need as well. I don't have any conflicts of interest. I don't have any. I don't own a business. All my investments and so forth are like public companies, and so there's no need for me to recuse on any decisions.
So we're going to move on to the next questions. We've hit 3 minutes there. If you were to run a campaign for Solvang City Council tomorrow, what would your platform be?
Well, the things I'd like to see in Solvang are to keep tourism the primary industry. I would like to see the traffic situation improved. And one way I see that we could possibly improve this would be to put walk, don't walk signs, or the signals on each crosswalk across Mission, and then try to synchronize the street lights so that the traffic flows a little bit more smoothly. And it's also a safety matter for pedestrians. So those are important things to me. I want to keep Solvang relevant for a younger demographic as well, or make it more relevant for a younger demographic. And finally, I'd like to encourage water conservation as a way of keeping our costs for water down and reducing it. And also, I think that it would be good to incentivize low water usage. Right now I think that the water bills are such that, if you're a small user of water, you still have a fairly large bill. The meter charge and as well as the sewer are pretty much, a bigger part of the bill than they should be if you're a small water user.
Thank you. How would you handle strong public opposition to a policy you had intended to support?
Well, the city council is, operates on a transparent basis, and so I'd like to see, public hearings on an issue that's got a lot of controversy like that, so the public is kept involved on what's going on. And, secondly, just do a campaign to try to educate people on, why this policy that I'm recommending is, going to be better for the city.
Okay. And what is your vision for the future of Solvang?
Well, I'd like to see Solvang kept small. I don't really want to see us, annex more property, or bring in huge businesses to try to increase employment around here. I'd prefer to keep it a small town out in the city, and I think that's what the major tourism draw is to Solvang.
Okay. And
I have no experience in public service other than working on nonprofit boards and volunteering, but otherwise I've never held public office.
Perfect. So with that, you're provided a 1-minute summary if you choose to take advantage of that.
Well, I think you've you've seen my resume, so if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer those at this time. But I think that I've worked with a lot of government agencies over my career, both at Washington D.C., at the state level, the city level. Trying to advocate for the companies that I worked for, and laws that they wanted changed, or support that they wanted for various programs. So I know a little bit about government and how it works, and I think it's a process that I really want to be involved with, and that's I think that's about all I want to say about it at this time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Definitely. With that, we'll move on to candidate number 6, Kenny Esco, New York.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, audience. I'm here again.
Thank you. So, Kenny, you get a 3-minute presentation time.
Yeah.
And then we have 4 questions for you.
Okay.
2-minute limit on each one. So if you pause, I'll ask the next one, and we'll restart the ticker here.
Sure. Well, this is an opportunity for everyone. The community, the town decided to have a new, fresh faces, fresh blood. And that's why you were elected. Even I pull out from election, I got nearly 150 votes. So I assume, the community is giving a signal and direction for you guys if you elect me or somebody else. But just, it seems like time to meet the community's demand. So hopefully you choose someone fresh, new, and we'll meet and we'll work with your harmonies. This is all I want to say. So
okay.
I'm
so without
ready
moving,
to take your question. Yeah.
Moving to the questions.
Yes.
All right. So if you were to run a campaign for Solvang City Council tomorrow,
okay,
briefly describe what your platform would be.
Well, I've been saying that we want more business friendly, resident friendly, and treating the citizens, business owners equally, transparent, and city provides equal opportunity to everyone. And I see the glass empty, it can be filled. And also especially the residents do not gain anything out of tourism. So they should be awarded or compensated because so much money going on. You know, like definitely water meter reading fee should be lowered or get rid of it. And property taxes can be lowered. We should look other incomes to solve the traffic jam and also to generate income out of it. Like weekend, at least weekend can be parking charge so that we maybe avoid the unnecessary traffic. So like during the Christmas time we had, everything was, you know, packed full. But you know the sales, I don't think so were so successful. The hands were empty, so we should definitely reshape the. I would concentrate to reshape the Solvang to new brand, appeal to high spending consumers, rather than just, you know, getaway people. We should concentrate from San Diego to San Francisco area, no need to overseas, no need to spend our resources different places, and cut the spendings and increase the revenues, and, you know, make the residents happier, so they will support any tourism development. At this point, I'm also a resident. I don't see any benefit as a local unless you have a tourist business.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to the second question.
Sure.
How would you handle strong public opposition to a policy you had intended to support?
Well, democracy is not about what majority wants. Of course, I would listen them. I would raise my ears and try to understand. I would try to be in their position, and I would give second thought. At the end, of course, I would listen my judgment, and the in general necessity.
Thank you. And what is your vision for the future of Solvang?
Well, you know, I lived in Singapore. Singapore, 25 years, 30 years ago, it was a poor island, had nothing, no vista, no sources, no human sources, nothing, but now it became one of the most developed, most advanced, best airlines, best airport, best hospitals, best schools. So with the planning, Solvang has tremendous potential, you know, in the middle of everything. So if we plan the things in properly, and Solvang has a lot of offerings and has huge potential to gain with the new economy, tourism, and the IT business and the wine industry. So they can be all combined, as long as if we put in the right direction.
Thank you. And let's see, you did run in the 2018 election. What experience do you have in public service?
Well, I worked around the world for the World Bank consulting companies, helping the third world city governments, how to generate the more revenues. So I can, you know, like I was build, operate, transfer for parking, for the restrooms, and other activities. This is what I can use my previous experiences, can be channeled toward to Solvang.
Thank you. So you have a 1-minute summary if you choose to take.
I said all what I need to say. Okay. So just I want to make sure you elect me or somebody else. Just, you know, I'm sure you will meet the society, the community's need and demand and wishes. We just need, so you choose someone that you will work in harmony, so who can meet your political agenda and who can meet your future plans.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
So with that, we'll move on to Joan Jameson. Good evening.
Hello. It's unusual to be down here.
So just the flow really quick, 3-minute presentation time, and then 2 minutes responding to each question. If you pause, then I will move on to the next question so that Lisa can start the ticker and
Okay.
we don't get lost. And then a 1-minute summary.
Okay. So what I'm doing is 1 through 4 first. Is that correct? Or am I doing my opening comments?
Well, you have 3 minutes for
opening
open.
comments. Okay, just a minute. Let me get. Here we go. Okay. My father taught me it was important to be involved, that we needed to give back to our communities as volunteers and public servants. Public servants is a passion of mine. I've been a public servant for 35 years. I feel it's important to have someone in the council to provide institutional memory and experience for the newly elected council. I have found that the last 10 years as my service here in the city to be invigorating and challenging, frustrating and uplifting. And I'm proud of the citizens of Solvang for their participation and the good governance of and by the people. And this makes it truly an American city. Providing for the health and safety and the happiness of our citizens is the job of the City Council. An adequate and safe source of potable water will always be of concern for Solvang. We have been working diligently to provide a variety of sources. We are now faced with the upgrading and expanding of our out-of-date wastewater treatment plant. This will be a costly, necessary project. If we don't update it, we will begin to be fined. And one of my pet projects is our local library. How many minutes do I have left? Okay.
Halfway through.
Okay. Having served in the public sector locally, the following expresses some of my personal guidelines, experiences as a public official. The understanding of how state and county funding works and sometimes does not work for local districts. It is not a perfect system. The citizenry is not served well by a public official having a personal agenda. Listening to all sides of an issue before making a decision is of importance and necessary. Being provided thorough and adequate information before meetings is needed in order to make a good, sound decision. When there's controversy, it is good to try to create a win-win situation for all parties whenever possible. I consider myself a calming, reasonable influence on boards. A good council person allows staff to do their work and not micromanage everyday procedures. It is of utmost importance to have adequate, current protocols, rules, regulations, and written policies in keeping with state law to follow and abide by, and an updated general plan, which we're going to start doing in the near future. A good council person needs to come. Thank you very much.
So that was your 3-minute presentation. So now we'll move on to the questions.
Okay.
First one, if you were to run a campaign for Solvang City Council tomorrow, briefly describe what your platform would be.
Okay. Number 1, to continue to keep the Danish culture alive in Solvang. Number 2, education of the City Council and the citizens on major issues. Number 3, address residents' needs as opposed to those of tourists, and this is partly addressed by Measure Z funding. Number 4, thorough study of policies, protocols, codes, etc. by the council so they have a complete understanding. Number 5, help entire valley, especially Solvang, with the traffic problem. And number 6 is to learn not to micromanage staff by council. Services handled by professionals. They are professionals, and we need to build a team so that we all work better together.
Thank you. And how would you handle strong public opposition to a policy you had intended to support?
Okay, we had this experience this year with the annexation. I never come into a meeting with a definite vote in my head. I know where I'm leaning, but I don't necessarily always vote that way. So you have to listen, If there's great controversy, you have to try to compromise. You have to try to create a win-win situation. And if you can't get to that point in the first meeting, sometimes you have to table the issue and come back, and the council has to study it more and the people have to study it more. And possibly then when you come back again to look at the issue, then you can have a reasonable vote that everybody is in agreement with.
Perfect. And what is your vision for the future of Solvang?
Is that number 3?
Yes.
Okay. My vision is to keep it Danish, but to listen to our Economic Development Committee so that we are not caught unawares as to something major happening to our city that might cause us great loss of income. We have a number of tasting rooms, and we all know they're all not going to last. Some of them are not going to be here, maybe 5 years from now, maybe next year. So we're going to have to figure out how to fill in those places. Same goes with some of our restaurants. Somebody told me in the room over there, we have 30 restaurants in town. I could eat in a different restaurant every day. That would be delightful, but I don't know if that's true. I don't know that I'd like all the food. Sorry. Again, keeping the Danish heritage alive through Danish Days, Yule Fest, Taste of Solvang, Theater Fest. Maybe we need a Hamlet production every year like they used to do. And then our Elverhøj Museum, which I think is a jewel. Those are my answers.
Okay. And so you did run in the 2018 election, so what experience do you have in public service?
Oh,
I have to
okay.
ask the question.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I've been a public servant for 35 years, 17 on the Solvang Elementary School District, 8 on the High School District, 10 at the City of Solvang. At the elementary school district, we passed a bond and we built the gymnasium and the primary classroom area. I was on the committee that started the foundation, which is now the SAM program. And we also did an English-speaking class for parents. We had an enormous amount of Spanish-speaking parents in our school, of our children, and our children were lost. So they were doing fine in school, but then they tried to go home and talk to their parents in English, and they couldn't. So we got the parents to come and learn English, and I thought that was a really super program.
Thank you. So with that, you get a 1-minute summary.
Okay,
if you choose.
Wait just a minute. Okay. I am passionate about the city of Solvang. Solvang has changed my life. Now it's important to me that the city thrives and continues to share the Danish culture with our visitors. A place we all cherish and treasure, and that remains an exceptional place to live, raise our children, our grandchildren, and see future generations flourish. Projects and events come and go. No matter what a council person needs to be dependable, ethical, honest, be able to stand up to the public scrutiny, be willing to learn, and be approachable throughout the process of governance of and by the people. I take pride in my work. I do what has to be done. I talk less and say more, finish what I start, be tough but fair, know where to draw the line, keep my promises as best I can, live every day with courage. This is my personal code. My code as a Solvang resident, as a 7th generation Californian, and a very proud American. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Nicole.
All right, so with that, we'll call up our 8th candidate, Christopher McCool. How are you?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Christopher McCool. I've been a city resident for a cumulative 12 years, 24 years in the Valley. My wife and I raised our 3 children here, all graduates of the San Ynez Valley High School. I have a college graduate, a soon-to-be college graduate, and a current college attendee. When I was employed by the city of Solvang in the year 2000 to 2005, I started out in the Parks Department. I was able to learn all the different parts that entailed how the department ran. Under Brian Just, I had an opportunity while I was employed to transfer to the Water Department. I saw that as an example to progress with a higher paying job to give my family more opportunity. And in doing so, I was able to obtain a license in water distribution, water treatment, and became familiar with the city infrastructure on the water system. Was also in charge of being on call to be able to run the SCADA system, to maintain the pumps and wells, every part of the water system, including the water meter exchange program that was installed then. And I also was part of the satellite mapping of the wastewater and water systems. I saw another opportunity while I was in the water department to transfer to the wastewater department, and I thought it was another opportunity for me to learn more, to hopefully make more income for my family. And after 3 months there, I decided to turn back to the water department. So it was a good move. But while I was employed with the city, I also, my wife and I always wanted opportunities. So we had an opportunity to purchase a local business. We took that opportunity, and we were able to purchase a business within the city of Solvang limits. So I am a former business owner, a former Chamber of Commerce member. Our business was relying primarily on local support. There was a sporting goods store that had been in the Valley for 30 years. We ended up being the last family to own the store due to the timing of internet and other events and lack of local support. We had a kind of the demographics of what's going on now with different people coming to the Valley, different people leaving the Valley. So it's very similar to how businesses are suffering or sustaining themselves right now. In my experience in the Valley, I've been a community volunteer. I have been in the hospitality business for over 20 years. I've also believed that teaching the youth and showing them that when you have an opportunity, you need to take it.
Okay,
So
with that, we've hit the limit. Move on to the first question.
Sure.
If you were to run a campaign for Solvang City Council tomorrow, briefly describe what your platform would be.
Well, one, I would try to promote more local traffic within the city to support the local businesses so they can maintain themselves. I would try and help to develop programs where the locals would not fear coming through town, but would actually want to come through town, especially in the slow seasons. And I would also try to improve our tourism during certain times of the year as well. However that may be done. There's lots of options to do that.
Thank you. Question number 2. How would you handle strong public opposition to a policy you had intended to support?
Well, just like tonight, I think it's important that the community is able to speak and give their opinions, and then it is the decision of the council to weigh and balance and make that decision. So if somebody was not happy with our decision, I would thank them for coming and for giving their input, and always encourage them to do that. And if it was not the output that the outcome that they wanted, I would suggest that they pursue what they believe in, and maybe try another time, another way to approach, but always feel like they should be able to speak their opinion and feel valued in the community, because ultimately we're here to make the city of Solvang better.
Thank you. And what is your vision for the future of Solvang?
I think my vision is to incorporate not just the Danish heritage, but other heritage as well within the city. I know that it's primarily Danish, but I am of Irish descent, and I know that the Irish also were people that were founders of Solvang a long time ago. So I would promote not just the Irish and not just the Danish, but try to promote other ethnicities as well that occupy the city.
Thank you. And why didn't you run in the 2018 election?
My feeling is with the way the politics has been nationally and locally in the past couple of years and currently, I did not feel like I had a voice to stand and give my opinion. I was very happy with the change of the voting of the council, and once I saw that happen, I weighed and balanced whether or not I wanted to pursue it as an applicant. And like I've taught my kids, when there's an opportunity and you want to do good for your community, you step up and you put your best foot forward.
Thank you. And what experience do you have in public service?
Other than working for the city of Solvang and volunteering, I've done basically what it entails with my duties at the city. I've worked at parades, I've helped with traffic control, I've helped with lots of volunteering for other organizations besides youth organizations, primarily youth organizations. But I feel that if you have something to give to your community, you should offer what you have.
Perfect. So with that, you can give a 1-minute summation if you choose to take advantage of that.
Sure. Again, I do want to thank the opportunity for this. I know that there's a lot of people that are against this opportunity, but as somebody who would not normally step outside the box and have run in a campaign during the normal election, I believe that there's a good chance for diversity with the council. I think that there's new blood, new thoughts, new directions, and I thought that I would put my foot forward to have an opportunity to do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll move on to candidate number 9, Edwin Skitt. They're playing cards.
Hey, nobody's left.
All right. So you get a 3-minute presentation, and then we'll move into the questions. If you pause before each one, I'll ask the questions so that they can restart the ticker.
Okay.
And then a 1-minute summation.
Okay. Well, my situation is that I did run for city council. I was won 600 and some odd votes for this position of the 2-year term that Ms. Waite also ran for. I ran primarily for the reason that I knew that Mr. Vidro was going to be leaving. I was concerned that there would be a lack of institutional knowledge that would be useful for the incoming city council. I have been on the city council for a total of 12 years. I was on from 2002 to 2010, and then on from 2012 to 2016. At that point there, I felt it was time for give somebody else a run, and I believe that is the, Mr. Sant, you were the one who ended up winning my position. But I was taking a look at it, and I saw at the chance at this election that might be a possibility that there would be a lack of continuity, because I did know that the city manager was leaving, and there was a number of items that have occurred previously over the years that the council actions, and I felt that if I could come on, I could help prevent a reinvention of the wheel, or if at least nothing else, come in and give points of view of why actions were taken, and that's what I was looking at primarily. I felt that I have a great deal of knowledge to bring to the community. I've been a lifelong resident of the city of Solvang, other than 4 years that I spent in the Navy, and that's pretty much my stand.
Thank you. So with that, question number one, if you were to run a campaign for Solvang City Council tomorrow, briefly describe what your platform would be.
Well, my platform would be the same that I ran on before, that I have a knowledge of past, of what was going on. I like to know what the present's going on, and I would be helpful in improving the future of the community. And that's what I felt that I would be most likely helpful to the city council. There's a lot of information that I have about the community, and that's what I ran on.
Perfect. Question number two. How would you handle strong public opposition to a policy you had intended to support?
I did it before when I was on the city council. I have to take a look at what I believe is correct policy. I feel that being influenced by a quote-unquote mob mentality, if you get a small group of people in here really vocally pushing one position, I'd like to take a look at the overall ramifications of the policy. I don't want to have my vote swayed because there's a lot of vocal support for one to make me change my vote one way or the other. Several times when I was on the city council before, I was on the position where I did have to make that decision, and I normally, or I don't want to say normally, I did follow what I felt was best for the city. And several times it was looking at what was best for the city was not necessarily best for my own personal position, but I felt I took a look. My position was I took an oath to do the best I could do for the city of Solvang. It was not the best for me, it was the best for the community.
Perfect. Number three, what is your vision for the future of Solvang?
Solvang over the last 40 years, 50 years, has continually evolved. I see Solvang evolving currently. 15 or 20 years ago, actually take that back, 30 years ago, Solvang had a number of T-shirt shops. We were very, had a trashy reputation of a tourist. People came up, said, okay, come to Solvang if you want bakery goods. After that, leave. Solvang evolved over the years. It's evolved to a point now where we have a very good mix of businesses from high end to intermediate to lower end. Brings in tourists from all spectrums, and we will evolve as we go through. The city has a responsibility to ease that transition by making sure we are consistent in maintaining our rules, regulations, and the sort. We must not utilize the best description is complaint-driven on going in after violations. We need to go out and have a far more consistent policy of enforcement of our rules and regulations. But I think we are going to evolve. We've gone from restaurants to from tourist shops. We have a large number of wineries and wine tasting, and I would say in the future that will evolve into something else. But we should make sure that when we do it, we are consistent in our enforcement of our rules and regulations.
Thank you. And What experience do you have in public service?
Well, I was city council from 2002 to 2010, city council from 2012 to 2016. While I was on earlier time, I spent time on the SBCAG board. I was also on the APCD. I was on the multi-jurisdictional solid waste task force. I was also the representative on Caltrans for the CalRail project for bringing up the rail line from passenger traffic on the coast route of the Union Pacific Railroad. And then over the last years when I wasn't on the city council, I was consistently, if I've seen something, I would come in, I would talk to the various people in the city, the staff, and if I saw something that I thought needed to be done, I would talk to Mr. Vidro. He normally sent me to the representative of or the department head that the question pertained to.
Thank you. With that, you're afforded a 1-minute summation if you choose.
My summation is that I feel that I would be very useful to the current city council. We have 2 new members who've never been on before. The other, Mr. Toussaint, you've been on for 2 years. I think you are realizing you're still learning some of the things. Ms. Waite has been on for about 16, 18 months. I can't remember exactly. So you're still in the learning phase. I have been on the city council for a number of years. I do not have that timeline to bring it up to speed for this position, because I think you normally feel that it is, or I feel it's about a 2-year timeline to really get up to speed. And actually, as of today, the next general election is 22 months away, as of today. And so the new people on the board, there are 1, 2 people on the board already that are going to be up for election in 2020, and whoever fills this spot tonight will be up for election in that time frame. And I feel that I can have a spot where I don't have to work on the getting to speed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, candidate number 10, Daniel Johnson.
Hello.
So Daniel, real quick, just go over the flow. 3-minute presentation time, and then we'll move into the questions. You have 2 minutes to respond to each question. If you pause before going to the next one, we'll restart the ticker, and then a 1-minute summation. So with that, you have 3 minutes.
All right, great. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for giving me this chance. It's been great to get to know all of them back in that room for the last however long we've been back there. I just want to say first off that I feel that being on the city council is about service, and it's about serving the public of Solvang and the businesses of Solvang. And so we need to consider, first off, what they want. And they're the individuals that we're serving here. And so as I was thinking about that, I kind of thought about, I spent 2 years in another country, in Chile, and down when I was there for 2 years, we spent a lot of time doing service. And I thought about how much I enjoyed that time of my life, where really I didn't have to think so much about my personal needs, but more about these individuals and what I could do for them. And that got me to thinking that I wanted to apply, and I wanted to be a part of the city council, because I feel that the existing city council is looking to make those changes and to really serve the community and represent the community, and that's why they're on the city council.
Perfect. So with that, we'll move on to question number 1. If you were to run a campaign for the Solvang City Council tomorrow, briefly describe what your platform would be.
So there's a couple points that I have regarding this. One of those is balancing the needs and concerns, as I stated, of the residents, but also supporting the business community. I work very closely with a lot of the businesses here in Solvang. I'm a local CPA, so I've spent some time with them, talking with them. I understand their concerns, but you have to balance both. It's really important to make sure that you're representing both. For example, a lot of the residents, one of their complaints is maybe there's too many people, there's too much traffic and whatnot, and a lot of the businesses say, well, that's great because that's bringing in money. And so there's ways that we can possibly work that we can manage that, where we can still bring in plenty of money for these businesses to provide for themselves, and at the same time lessen the traffic and the wear and tear on the city. Those are some things that I would discuss. Another concern is fiscal responsibility, and I feel that I spend a lot of time looking at financials. I actually have the budget with me, not that I would recommend reading it. I have read it, but that is something that is a concern of mine. I don't want mistakes to be made or overspending to happen where the residents or the businesses have to pick up the bill for mismanagement. And I think that's very important that we keep a close eye on that and make sure that we're budgeting correctly and that we are planning correctly for the future. The last thing is the future of Solvang. What is going to be the future of Solvang? And I got 3 young children, 3 boys, and I want to make sure that Solvang develops the right way to be, so that possibly they can move back here sometime in their life, and be a part of this community, as I have been my entire life.
Perfect. Question number 2. How would you handle strong public opposition to a policy you intended to support?
Okay, so I was kind of thinking about this one, and as I said, I have 3 young children, and if you've had children, you may know. Try getting them to shower, try getting them to go to bed, try getting them to do anything, and you can have some hostile discussions with them. So I understand there's going to be problems. People are not going to agree with you. What you really have to focus on is, what did the citizens and what did the businesses vote for? What did they want? Because that's who you're representing. And you have to make the best decision possible to represent them.
Okay. And number 3, what is your vision for the future of Solvang?
So there's been a lot of, I've thought a lot about this one. Being that I have Danish heritage, and I know that the Danish culture is obviously an integral part of this town. I like to reiterate my platform, really making sure that Solvang is able to sustain itself fiscally, and also that we are not completely against change, against having things that the modernization. There's a if you're not rebranding yourself, if you're not changing yourself, then you're going to be left behind. And I think Solvang can keep its Danish heritage and keep what makes it Solvang, and still move forward with many things that can modernize it and bring in maybe a different demographic of tourists that can bring in even more money, while maybe not costing the city as much as it does.
Okay. Let's see. Why didn't you run in the 2018 election?
I actually pulled my papers. I went and got the signatures, and I walked door to door. I talked to people, and for some family and business reasons, I felt that now might not be the time. After seeing what the voters wanted and seeing who they elected to the council, I feel that I would complement what is shown on the council and what the 70% of the citizens of Solvang want. And I feel that I'd be a great asset to the council and to the city to move forward with these many changes and these many things that they're looking to accomplish. And we really, it really is about service, and we really have the opportunity to serve the people. It's not about us. It's not about getting compliments or a pat on the back or going to cocktail parties. It's about doing what's right for the citizens. It's about doing what's right for these businesses so that Solvang can succeed.
Okay. And what experience do you have in public service?
I've served on numerous boards around Solvang. I've served on the Solvang Chamber as treasurer. served with, I've helped build and wreck with many projects. I also am a active member of my church in public service for the church. I have a family that I have to manage. That seems like a very, very big service.
And you're on the Planning Commission.
I am on the Planning Commission and will happily still serve on the Planning Commission.
All right, with that, you have a 1-minute summary if you choose to take advantage of that.
I just want the council to know and the public to know that I'm ready to serve. If you feel that I'm right for this appointment, I am more than happy to help to implement these changes that the voters have requested and wanted. And I will do my best to serve the public and do what is right for the city of Solvang and for our future.
All right, thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to our last candidate, Kim Jensen. So Kim, just to go over the flow really quick, 3-minute presentation time.
Okay.
We'll move into questions. You get 2 minutes to respond to each question.
Okay.
If you pause before moving on to the next thing, we'll restart the ticker so there's less confusion.
Okay.
And then you get a 1-minute summation time at the end.
Okay. Ready?
You can proceed.
Okay, good.
My name is Kim K. Baggison Jensen, and I'm applying for the 2-year council appointment. I've been a member of this community for over 50 years, a third-generation Dane with lineage going back to Copenhagen, Odense, and Aalborg, and my Mexican side from Guadalajara. I grew up here as a baker at Burkholm's Bakery and with Vaughn's corporate food division for Safeway for a total of 30-plus years. 8 years with Nielsen's Market as a general manager, and now 8 years as owner and operator of Ingeborg's Danish Chocolate Company. Presently, I am a Danish Days volunteer. I'm a member of the Vikings, Danish Brotherhood, and the Solvang Chamber of Commerce, and president of the Solvang Visitors Bureau. I come here representing what has been the lifeblood of the general fund, and that's tourism. It is my belief by laying down consistent ground rules for building, setting up proper planning and communication for public works projects, and continuing to upgrade your city, people will still come, stay in hotels, visit us, spend money, and Solvang will continue to prevail as that desired destination for a lead industry. I will operate with only one goal in mind, and that is to make Solvang, that city, through difference of opinions, projects, or issues, will succeed over other cities who face similar problems. That will include the interviewing for the best city manager for Solvang. As you can see, I have a vested interest here in Solvang, and if I'm not appointed, I will not disappear. You will see me all the time, but only to continue to be an active community representative for the safe, charming, beautiful city of Solvang.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the first question. If you were to run for a campaign in Solvang, if you were to run a campaign for Solvang City Council tomorrow, briefly describe what your platform would be.
I would address the wastewater treatment issues, clarifying versus membrane, address building planning permit fast tracking. I would address the CalPER retirement issue that we have still going on. Address municipal issue projects planning, calendar, and communicating to citizens and owners of businesses so they know what's going on when we're doing actual projects. And finally, address staff turnover rate. I really want to keep the staff here, I don't want things changing. I think we spend a lot of money on our staff. They're very good. And if they leave, I don't want them going somewhere else after we've trained them and spend all our city money. They're very good people here.
Okay. Question number 2. How would you handle strong public opposition to a policy you had intended to support?
I live by rules that I do every day when I have meetings. Before I come to any meeting, period, I don't ever allow myself to be surprised. I do my homework, converse with either city staff, members of Solvang Chamber, Visitors Bureau, Rotary, seniors, even Chumash leadership, and retail operators and owners of neighborhoods, citizens, depending on whatever the matter will be. I will do research, the history of past similar issues. Did they work, or did the city get stung by them? I will always study ahead and know what's coming down the pipeline through listening and conferring with city community leaders. I will make sure the decision I make will make financial sense for the long term. Always remembering one council decision is final. Any going back and changing will involve attorneys, wasted large sums of money, and community disdain. And finally, be consistent on all final decisions. If I'm doing that, I can go in being confident. I will not be surprised, and I will take on any issues that are presented before me.
Okay. What is your vision for the future of Solvang?
My vision would be to include transforming the local libraries, additionally being a possible research center involving the arts of locals and early settlers, and of our Danish heritage. I think we see out there in many parts of the country and other parts of the world that that's very important. I want people to come here and see us for that reason. I would also like to see us involve Cal Poly and the Danish architectural students be a part of renovating the new Danish architecture to make this Memorial Hall be a destination for visitors. And we've seen that in other parts of the world too, including Denmark, where they will bring the old and mesh it with the new.
Okay. And what experience do you have in public service?
The lone item is I've been president with the Solvang Visitors Bureau Board. I do with the Danish Days, as well as Danish Brotherhood and the Vikings, where I interact with them.
Okay. With that, you have a 1-minute summation if you choose to take advantage.
I hope you all make a great decision here tonight. I think there's some great qualified people, and I wish the best for this new council. You have a lot to take in here, and I wish you all the best. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, I guess we'll move on to the second part of the process, which would be council rankings.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, we will be moving on to the ranking of the candidates now. The city clerk has passed out a ballot to each one of you. It has the names of each one of the candidates, the 11 candidates on there. We were asked that council members rank their top 5 candidates in order of preference, with 1 being your first choice, 2 being your second choice, 3 being your third choice, etc. This ranking will then provide candidates with a point value. Once this is done, council members will then sign their ballot, hand it to the city clerk, and then the city clerk will work with myself, and we will put on the overhead screen what the results of the ballot voting is.
So should we take a, 5-minute thing for us to fill out our ballots, and then we'll turn those in?
Or make a 10-minute break so we can fill up and then go to the bathroom and stuff.
I prefer that actually that we don't leave the podium.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. So 10 minutes up here.
5 minutes.
5 minutes? 5, okay. All right, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Robert. Okay, so each council member has rated their candidate on a ballot. And what we're going to start off by doing is turning our ballots over to Lisa Martin, city clerk. And then Rick Hayden, our interim city manager, is going to give a brief summary of how the ballot ranking process works up here. And then we're going to take a 5-minute restroom break so that we can actually go to the bathroom up here. With that, I'll leave it with you, Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the break, I was approached by a couple of residents asking what the ballot looks like. There's a little bit of confusion on the ballot. So what I thought I would do is show you a copy of a blank ballot that was before the city council. This is a copy of the blank ballot. It basically has all the candidates' names right there. And then council members were asked to rank them as far as their priority, their first choice, second, third, fourth, and fifth choice. Each one of those will then get a corresponding point value. Your first choice would get 5 points, your second choice would get 4, third choice 3, fourth choice 2, and then finally your last choice would get 1. That will then be given to the city clerk, and then between the city clerk, it will be verified by the city attorney. They will announce the point values, and then I will populate the spreadsheet for each council member, and then it would give the points over here to the right. The candidate with the most points would be the person that receives the most support by the city council for the vacant position. So at this time, did you want to take a 2-minute break, Mr. Mayor?
A 5-minute restroom break would be great.
5-minute restroom break, and we'll verify the ballots during that process. And I won't put anything up until council comes back.
Thank you. like to re-adjourn the meeting. So the ballots have been turned in to the city clerk, and staff has had some time to tabulate the results.
We're going to tabulate them live.
Oh, you're going to tabulate live. Okay, great. So before we move on to that, I'd like to provide council an opportunity to thank all the candidates that inquired and applied to this position. So with that, if anyone has anything to say, Robert?
I would like to. This has been really, really, really unpleasant because some of you I know, some I don't know. It's been amazing.
Oh, your mic, so start over.
This has been an interesting experience, to say the least, and this has been amazing. I love especially the why didn't you run, or why haven't you run before? Because I was in the exact same boat. I cared about the community very much. I feel like I'm an ambassador for Solvang, and I kind of had to take some prodding to get into it. And it's remarkable that people think the same way, that people have moved here and took ownership in such a short period of time in this town is pretty awesome. I almost think it's easier to run for office than to get up here in front of a few strangers and tout your case, because you do have more time. And I circled 6 names that I would love to serve with, but obviously I couldn't. So the people that don't get picked, God bless you. I'm glad you're here. It's been an amazing experience for me, and I just want to thank you for having the guts to do this. Thank you.
Karen, do you have any comments?
Yes. I would like to thank all of the applicants for showing up this evening and putting themselves out there to try to get a seat on this council. Having been in all of those situations, run in an election, lost an election, put in an application, attempted to be appointed, got appointed, won an election. I know how very difficult it is, and I'm really glad that we could do this transparently. I wouldn't have it any other way, other than my proposed wanting to follow the original protocol of an appointment. But thank you again so much, and good luck. And please stay involved in the community. If you do not wind up in this position, there are so many other ways to be involved in the community. So thank you.
I want to echo my colleagues because this is a tough process. It's for us. We really appreciate the sacrifices that you are willing to make to serve the city, the community of residents and businesses. This is a thankless job. We don't get paid to do this. This is a labor of love, and this is why the process was designed to ask questions that would allow us to see what's really important to you and how you think and how you're going to serve the greater community's needs. Having said that, as Robert said, I would love to work with all of you in the near future, and that requires, what I'm trying to say is that the city runs on volunteers. It's not just the staff. And the greater the support that we get from the community, the better we're all off. So please continue to serve, continue to reach out to us and work with us as we try to work with the rest of the community. Thank you again for applying.
And I'd just like to say that, thank everyone for showing out. I'm just so happy to see that we had 11 people, applying for this vacancy here. And so it's really important that we get that community involvement. We got to hear a lot of different ideas that people have. That's just part of our community engagement process. I think that's great. And I hope that anyone that didn't get appointed to this 5th seat here tonight, please apply to the boards below, because we're going to be looking to eventually make appointments there as well. So that being said, let's do it.
The results from the ballot of Mayor Toussaint are Daniel Johnson, 5 points. Michael Mendiza, 4 points. Gregory Milliken, 3 points. Justin Rodriguez, 2 points. And Kim Jensen, 1 point. The results of the ballot of Councilmember Clark are Justin Rodriguez, 5 points. Kim Jensen, 4 points. Daniel Johnson, 3 points. Michael Mendiza, 2 points. Gregory Milliken, 1 point.
Concur.
The results of the ballot of Councilmember Dearness, Daniel Johnson, 5 points. Kenny Esco, 4 points. Michael Mendiza, 3 points. Chris McCool, 2 points. And Justin Rodriguez, 1 point. The results of Councilmember Waite's ballot, Joan Jamison, 5 points. Kim Jensen, 4 points. Justin Rodriguez, 3 points. Gregory Milliken, 2 points. And Kenny New York, 1 point.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, based off of the total point value ratings, it appears that Daniel Johnson received 13 points, the highest of the candidates in this process.
So with that, I believe we need to make a motion accepting resolution number 19 next in order. Would anyone like to craft that motion?
I make a motion to, where is my?
Here it is, right here.
Resolution City Council make a motion to fill the unexpected term of office of the City Council. Want me to read the motion?
Yes, with Daniel's name.
Okay. Whereas Council Ron Toussaint won his bid for mayor during the general election, December 10th, sworn in as mayor. Whereas this created a vacancy in the City Council for the remainder of the Toussaint's term. Go to the end.
Mike. Oh yeah, you need to.
Sorry, everybody. Whereas the government code indicates that vacancy occurs in elective office, City Council shall within 60 days of the commencement of the vacancy either fill the vacancy by appointment or call a specialist to fill the vacancy. And whereas the city has advertised for the vacancy on the City Council, has accepted applications from interested individuals, and has listened to oral presentations from interested individuals wanting to be appointed to the vacant City Council seat. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that the City Council of the City of Solvang, California, hereby appoint Daniel Johnson to fill the unexpected term of the office of council member on the City Council.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Can we do a roll call?
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Dearness,
Yes.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint.
Yes, that passes with a 4-0.
I believe at this time they would like to call up Mr. Johnson to be sworn in by the city clerk and then take his seat on the dais.
If you could raise, you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Daniel Johnson,
I, Daniel Johnson,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Thank you. If I can get your signature?
All right. So with that, we are adjourned.
Nice. Well done.